All right. What's up, Austin? So,
What's going on, brother?
yeah, we're going to act like we weren't just talking for the past hour. We
Yeah,
kind of
really
front
pretty good
front
combo.
loaded this.
Yeah.
But I want to welcome everybody to, we're going to call this conversations with coaches and creators, maybe convos with coaches and creators. I'm not sure yet. We're just going to kind of refine it as it goes. But basically, I want to have different coaches and creators on here, and we're going to talk. We're going to have a different topic every time, and we're just going to kind of see where that leads. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Why don't you let the people know who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Well, first off, I appreciate you thinking of me, having me on board with the
Episode
podcast. I
one.
think episode one, baby. So yeah, I appreciate it because I think your idea of what you've been displaying with me of like the content or the creators and the coaches with just conversations. It's not always needing to be just like the science based stuff and all the blah blah blah. It's like really wrapping your head around the whole entire thing. I think that you're kind of going into the fitness industry, correct? Like in health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like, I really appreciate you having me on board. My name is Austin Paulsen. People call me Coach AP, but I own Austin Paulsen Fitness. And then also, I'm sure that he'll be on here at some point, but Cliff Wilson and I, we own Unrivaled Coaches, which amazing Mikey here is a part of and one of the great coaches for Unrivaled. And so, we do the coaching and we have mentorship and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've been obviously coaching for, I think it's been about 9 or 10 years now, just doing different stuff.
And
And
how long have you been bodybuilding for? Because
um,
Austin's a bodybuilder as well.
yeah, so I do compete. And I think it's been about 8 years. No, it's been about, when did I start? It was probably about 9 years now, because it's about the same time I started coaching more just like Gen Pop, and then I wanted to do my first show kind of stuff. So it's about the same timeline there. So yeah, I started out in men's physique, bro, and you
Did
would
you? I
be,
didn't know that. So we both kind
yeah.
of started because I started in men's physique, did
Mhm.
bodybuilding. No. God, I've been doing okay. So I started in bodybuilding,
Oh,
then went physique, then bodybuilding, then physique. So I didn't
gotcha.
know that you started in physique.
I did. It was funny because like you would laugh at these pictures. I have to send them.
I gotta see them.
Like because I don't know if I posted in that group, but anyway. So I started men's physique, and my coach at the time, the very first coach, great guy, but he was like, how men's physique, especially like bikini, we're talking about contest prep stuff. It's subjective in the sense of like there's a total package look. So like how you look, even display yourself, like obviously your physique, but maybe your hair, or you're like, the girls with their hair, their suit and stuff like that. And so for me, my coach at the time was like, we got to look like Cali, the beach ball, all that look.
Oh.
So I bleach. She's like, I want you to bleach your hair. I got some like earrings. I got more studs, dude. And I had bright pink like board shorts. But the reason being why
Hey,
I
you
started there,
committed. You committed.
dude, I was all in. I was like, whatever you
Yeah.
say, like, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I started there because back then is when I tore my ACL actually. So I didn't repair that before I started getting into conscious prep, and my legs just like atrophied like crazy. So there was just, I didn't even have legs to show. So I just had upper body at that time. And it took a while to build back
Perfect for
my
physique.
legs. Yeah, perfect for
No, I'm
physique.
just,
So that's kind of where I started.
it's physique by default.
Yeah. So,
And you know
but
what's funny is because and now your legs are like a strong point.
I feel like that we've like they're still need to come out. But yeah, I feel like they've become a lot more. It used to be just like more, just like my back, and then my chest was flat, like incaved, and my legs were just
Yeah.
like tiny. But yeah, like we spent a lot of time trying to build that up, and so that's what we're actually still doing right now. Because when you go to like national shows and like at least the NPC, it's like you'll start to see these genetic freaks, right? And it's just insane the type of leg development they got, and
Man,
so.
I got a funny story for you. So I think this was like my second season of competing, and it was 2015. And we were backstage, right? And I was competing as a pro, but I wasn't there yet, right? So when you're backstage at a bodybuilding show, and I was competing physique. when you're backstage at a bodybuilding show, you're just in awe at what these people look like. They are freaks. Like anyone who's not been at a show, the pictures do not do it justice because you don't see all the details and the graininess and the strip, and no picture could ever do what you see backstage justice. So this was one of the first times where I actually saw like pro bodybuilders backstage. And Austin, these dudes were so critical of themselves with body dysmorphic disorder. So you had two, I forget who they were. Because I'm just sitting back there kind of taking everything in. Oh, I'm just happy to be here, you know? And, you know, like 138 pounds, me. And these guys were backstage, and they're I can't remember, I'm really bad with names, but there are a couple of big competitors, big bodybuilding competitors. And they were like, man, my bicep peaks, they're just not there. They're just not there. And the other guy's like, yeah, but your calves, look at my calves. My calves, they're just, I am such a piece of shit. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there back there just taking it in. I'm like, this can't be good. I'm like, these guys look like Adonises, and they're so jacked, so shredded, just muscle hanging off them. And they're just sitting back there backstage at their peaks talking about how bad their calves are and how bad their bicep peaks are. And I was like, if this isn't a good look at bodybuilding, I don't know what is, because that's how everyone is, you know, when they look at themselves. You're like, man, you're always focusing on like what is wrong, like what is bad about my physique. You just don't even, sometimes you don't even see what's good.
Yeah, no, I agree, because especially I feel like this that kind of mindset develops, and there's like a connotation with bodybuilding, right? And I think that especially a lot of like earlier, like newer competitors that like would coach or just friends with or whatever, they go through this phase because there's that ego part, right? And there's like the physical, it's all about the physical, how you look. And then, you know, you want to be competitive, obviously. So you can nitpick yourself on anything. I mean, let's be real, right? Because my calves are tiny too. I mean, that's just how it goes. But
don't get me started.
I think, right. So I think that's like very prevalent in the industry. But I think that the people who've been around for a while, maybe you've noticed, I don't know, but the people who've been around for a long time were able to, why they've been around for a long time is not only for like, you know, their training practices and stuff like that for injury, but like more of the mental part of it, the psychology of being able to disconnect, where they can be competitive, right, with themselves, but they're not like their negative self-talk so much. They just like, I just want to be done because I hate this, right? And then they just like go and eat all this food, get fat, and they're just like, oh shit, you know. So it's like
we've probably all done one. If you're not a bodybuilder unless you've gone off the rails on an off season too, which is actually something that we're going to talk about. So what we're going to talk about. Look, we could come on here and talk about all the stuff we do right, which, you know, yeah, good for us. We you know, we've managed to gain some experience in the time that we've been doing this. We know what we're doing now, but we did not know what we were doing. And I don't know about you, but how I found out what to do was because I did so many things wrong in the beginning. So what we're going to be talking about is our top 5 mistakes that we've made in our bodybuilding careers. I could do a top 50, but I want to keep it to the top 5, because I remember too, back when I was getting going, I used to get so frustrated because I'm like, I'm doing everything that I see other people doing, but I'm not getting, why don't I look like them? So I used to get so frustrated because it wasn't for like, there's something to be said for making mistakes, because you can work hard, and training is such a weird thing, because in what other scenario can you work really, really hard every single day and not get a result? There's nothing like it. I don't care what, pick a craft. If you're going to get better if you do it every day and you put the work in. But once you get to a certain point with your training and with your body, you're going to look the same year after year, even while putting the work in, which sucks.
Yeah, there's like this wall that I feel like that's even like I know we're talking about contest prep, but even with like just people trying to lose body fat in general, there's a misconception because there's like this connotation with, okay, I want to lose weight, right? And losing weight, what is the outcome of that? It will make me feel more confident, right? But there's like this short term thinking or this outcome based thinking that's like, I lose weight, or maybe I, in your newbie years, right? You're gaining all this muscle, like, hell yes, it's great. And all of a sudden you hit the wall,
Yeah.
and then you're like, dude, I'm doing all this work and nothing's happening, or very minimal is happening, or whatever. Same concept with people losing weight. They like get to that goal or that first initial phase of the first round of fat loss. And then it's like, now what? And now because there's not like that, they don't understand the purpose or like they're what they're why they're really doing it, then it's like the habits or like the effort things that were put into it, they're like, well, what's the point of doing this? Right. They start justifying like, well, is it really that important? And that's where people like go backwards. So there's not really like a concrete foundation of why you're doing anything in the first place, especially with competing like we're talking about, but also just in the general population, just losing body fat is it's like progression and then it's really hard to make it sound sexy to be like retention, like management of
That's why the
where you're at,
reverse
right?
is so hard. I mean, how common is it for people to lose, when you're losing weight and you're losing body fat, like let's say when you first get into it, that is really motivating for people to see that scale number, it's dropping. You spend
Yeah.
months and months and the weight's just dropping, but eventually you get to a point where you're going to have to build back up and retain, maintain. So that part is where people I find struggle the very most is when which is ironic because that's the part that's going to really be the foundation for what you're doing in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It's arguably more important because if you don't handle that post diet right, you're going to not only gain the weight back and maybe that more weight after that, but it's really going to make losing that weight extra hard in the future if you don't, really handle that post diet, scenario right. And it's not sexy when you're not seeing the weight drop every single week. You're like, all right, the goal here is really just to kind of let's chill here for a while,
Yeah.
keep the lost weight off, build muscle, and get ready for more future weight loss. It's so much less stimulating. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so the best stuff when it comes to this stuff is just the boring stuff. Like that is
Right.
like,
I know.
you're always trying to find this fine dance where it's like you want to keep people entertained and kind of stimulated, but at the same time, it's that boring day-to-day stuff. That's where like that's really what makes or breaks you. And I do find that the
Mm-hmm.
people that do best with long term, changing your body, weight loss, people that lose weight and turn it into like a lifestyle. They're people that tend to be okay with, I'm all right just being bored for a while. Like I'm good at doing the same,
Yeah.
the same boring stuff.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. They have to shift their focus. It's like that outcome versus like process driven kind of mindset. Cause essentially like the scenario we're talking about, if we put it in like an analogy or like a comparison, it's like there's a couple of different ones. It's more incentive based, right? Because it could be like going from making, I don't know, more and more like you're in your job, right? And like you're getting paid an hourly or whatever, salary or whatever it is. And over time, you're doing really good work and you're seeing your hard work like repay you in the sense of, okay, you got a small promotion here, small promotion here. And then what your skill sets are and like what the company needs, you get to a certain point where it's like a cap. And then from there, there's no more growth, right? So either you leave the company or whatever, but like there's a cap. And then now you just have to keep up this high amount of effort, right? And you're not seeing any growth, but you're
Yeah.
doing all the effort from instead of like it used to be about growth, which is like, yeah, input to output. Now it's like input for maintenance. And you're like, shit, like I like the growing part, right? And this scenario, it's fat loss. So then it's really hard. Also, like with the mental image of yourself, because like we're talking about mistakes and stuff, right? And yeah, I went through that was the first show. I was baffled away of how much food you can actually eat post show Like it is insane the amount of
I
food.
can't wait to
Like,
hear compare post show. So I wish Cliff was on here too, because he's got he's got such a great post show just horror story that I for those we've all been there. So I would love to hear that. I'm assuming that's going to be on your
yeah,
list.
yeah, yeah. No, it's. I don't know if that's where you want to start, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
let's
insane.
well,
Go ahead.
hold on.
No, where do you want to start? Because
Yeah,
yeah, we
all
can
right.
just
So
roll
let's
through.
go ahead. Let's go ahead. No, I got mine. So I got five, and I got five, and I have an honorable mention. So I'm gonna start with my um honorable mention. Now,
Okay,
I don't have mine in any particular order. Are yours in order, or you're just shooting from the
I'm just
hip? Because I'm
rolling.
just shooting.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool, cool, cool. So, I have an honorable. Do you want to go first? You're the guest. Why don't you go first? I'm a guest goes first here.
Okay. Okay. So five. Repeat the question so I make sure I answer
Okay,
it properly.
so five. Your top five biggest mistakes that you've made in your bodybuilding career.
Okay. So here's what I say because this might be a little bit different than like most people's perspective. Like we're coming on here and talking about post show eating and like messing up on
Yeah.
your diet or whatever, right? And
We
we'll
don't
get
have
there.
any
Like I have
rules
some of
here
those.
either, so you could say
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'll like lead off with kind of like going before we start recording, right? Of like different views and like more of the psychological part. Because I think the biggest, if I step back and really do a self audit, right? Of mistakes can come in many forms, right? And like you were saying, we're needing mistakes to learn. That's you can either have mentorship, which is just trying to like minimize the amount of mistakes, right, to progress, or you can just do what I did for a long time is just eat shit and keep failing until you just keep learning, right? So,
There's something to that. There's something to
yeah,
that.
there is. But I think if I take a step back from a broad sense of like all the specifics, I think one of the biggest mistakes, especially early on in my career, was the ability, like, sorry, the mistake was is not managing, uh, having so much tunnel vision on bodybuilding itself, of not having the management of all aspects of life to be congruent with bodybuilding. And so, like early on in my career, what I mean by this, there's so much talk like this of like all or nothing mentality, like you can do whatever it takes and blah blah
Screw
blah, right?
everything.
Screw
Nothing
everything.
matters. I just want to
Mm-hmm.
get big. I just want to build muscles. Go to the gym. That's it.
Yeah, and this is like I even had the other day, really good friend of mine. I coached him a long time ago, and then he was like trying to get into some coaching, and I was just trying to offer him help of like how to communicate maybe with these people that want coaching from him. And he was like, what would you send him in an email or something like that, or how would you talk to him? And he wrote this line. He's like, trust the process. Like as your coach, just trust the process. Pretty much implying like, don't question me, just trust the process. And what he displayed this in the sense that like that's all he knew because that's what his past coaching for years would just keep telling him like just trust the process and got to do what it takes, measure out, and he just followed meal plans, strict meal plans, year round training, high amounts of cardio, 2 hours, all this stuff just year round all the time. And he's at this point where he's like this man, like what is bodybuilding doing for me? Like how is it even benefiting, like bettering my life? Like I'm so unhappy because I spent so much effort over here. And where's the upside? Because this is what happened to me. I destroyed pretty much my entire like everything else but bodybuilding, right? So what I mean by that is like my relationship, like my romantic relationship, my family relationships, my like even school and like work suffering, everything was just like pulling down because I was just so focused on bodybuilding.
Was this
And
for
we
your
start to
show?
realize this was like through shows, even the off seasons. Like, cause I'm like, I could tell. We talk about this now with clients. It's like you see different personality traits, right? And you see this all or nothing mentality. Do whatever it takes.
Mhm.
And there's the all or nothing that they're a smokescreen of just pretty much saying like telling you what you want to hear, but they're really not that committed. They just have like this something else going on in life that they're just like motivated externally immediately for like a week or two. But there's the other ones that are really they're really actually like all or nothing, but they get so tunnel vision. This is how I was, where they really do everything what it takes. They'll eat the dog shit, right? Like to get there. and they'll just neglect everything else in life. And that's where I started to find myself, not knowingly, during, but now reflecting back, biggest mistake ever, because then you're like, fast forward 5 years and you're like, man, I missed out on some really great things that I, with family, friend, like relationships, whatever it was. And I wasn't present in life. And the funny part is the experience of bodybuilding wasn't as good back then as it is now, where fixing the mistake was, how can I incorporate my social life, your environment, your work, your peers? How can I still like have all that and still bodybuild? Is to pretty much, how do I associate bodybuilding into my life?
And you're probably, and you're probably a better, actually, from a bodybuilding standpoint, like your physique is probably better now doing with that approach, because when you're, because we've, I think we could all relate to, like, look, I will eat dirt if you tell me I will look better for it. It's just, that like eye of the tiger, willing to sacrifice, do whatever it takes to reach my goal. And you end up completely isolating yourself. You end up obsessing and thinking about bodybuilding all the time, which increases your anxiety, which increases stress, which messes with your hormones, which ironically ends up making you look worse in the process. And when you like take a step back, like how hard is it to, go to a restaurant and no, I'm good, I'm in prep or whatever, but I'm going to enjoy, that there is an actual benefit to you're even burning more calories being, out. So you're able to handle more food, and, being around the people that you love, because bodybuilding, like you said, it really should complement your life. It shouldn't be the people where it ends up being like an anchor or something that's like negatively impacting your life. They don't last long term. Like, they tend to drop off. How often do you see competitors, within a few years, you don't really see them competing anymore, and they tend to be like very high stress individuals and people who, they obsessed on it. And then it became like a really negative thing in their life. And then they just kind of say, you know what, this isn't for me. But yeah, ironically, you end up making yourself worse by just saying the only thing that matters in this life is bodybuilding, which is just not how it is, unless 100%. Like I could see that, like if you're one of these, like if you're a top Olympian, dude,
you're getting paid, it's your living. Even those guys though, like incorporating their wife or their, husband or whatever, it's important to have that support and, support them. But it's a different game for sure, in the sense of, people don't think about the financial part of competing. Like
we typically lose money, right?
During these, you lose money. It's that's why it's like it's almost it's a hobby, right? Kind of thing. Yeah. And then you can make it into a sport at the highest level, I think, but it's just a different game, and it's just multiple pillars. Like you're talking about stress, and you have environmental stress. Like that is the number one thing I think that is a contributor to. Well, I wouldn't say the number one thing, but it really affects or can influence, I should say, bodybuilding. Like how your success within it is how what you have control over, of like how to handle it. But everybody has a different hand, they're dealt, right? And so you kind of have to complement that of like, can you handle, do you have financial stability? Do you have, your relationships, are they stable, right? Because if you start in the prep and all these things are like scattered over here, this is not going to fix those things. Like you can run away from it for so long, but they're going to be right there when you get back.
Like when you think about it, what is a more expensive hobby or passion than bodybuilding? Think about it. You got food, gym, supplements, coach, posing coach. If you're doing, tanning, shows, travel, what I'm sure there's more that we're not thinking of right now. Right. But like that adds up over the course of a year. And even if you're winning, like, let's say like there's prize money and you win first place and you win that, check a couple grand or whatever, like $5,000 at the most. You're not making money still, and there's not many, outside, which I guess that's normal, like you're passions usually cost you money unless you're like really good at poker or something and like you're making money or like, stocks or whatever. But most passions that you're like, in love with, they're going to cost you money. And bodybuilding is very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive in multiple currencies, meaning monetarily with money, but currency of time,
Oh yeah.
and just like the portion where you're combating with fatigue and sleep things and whatever, but time, like
Yeah.
the increase of time over time, like that's so I look at now, like over the years, is like the currency that's more valuable than even the money is definitely time. And then like during bodybuilding, you'll notice like time goes up. You got your gym. Okay, maybe you got some card like later in prep, right? Maybe you're a person, maybe not Mikey, but you got to do a bunch of cardio. And then you got posing, right?
Yeah.
And you're like all this food and like thinking through it, all this stuff, and you got to
Yeah.
sleep like properly. Like those are the things like we're taking on, but it's our choice to be like, I want to be the best version, and like here's what it takes to be my best. And like you're exchanging that currency though, right? Like it's got to come from somewhere. And that's if you're good with it and you're good with everything else, go for it. I think that the mistake I made was like not understanding the full picture, I guess. And to even be like to touch on that more, maybe people like early on in their career, maybe you felt like this is I really feel like when you're newer into competing, there is a sense, and Cliff and I actually talked about this in mentorship. But there is a sense of justifying your identity. Okay, and people think people have like different like how they identify themselves in the sense of not gender, but like identify themselves as like who they are in the sense of like their financials, their hobbies. They're a husband or they're these they're labels that you take on in your life currently, like for your future.
I am
And
muscles.
yeah, I am muscles. I am bodybuilder. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so I think that what happens is like earlier on, if you have a sense of you're trying to justify to other people, right? Your work, like your identity is validated, is what I'm saying. And if you find this escape through looking better or a physical, aspiring higher level physically, you might justify your confidence or your ego or whatever it is, right? And I think that then you get tunnel vision, especially when you have some form of reinforcement of attention from peers or whatever. Wow, you're looking great. Well, then in your head, you're like, I spent 3 hours, like my whole day's revolved around this, and I finally got a compliment. It's like, okay, let's keep doing let's destroy everything else in my life, but I'm going to keep doing this because I got some recognition, right? And I think that that's a very negative relationship, right, with it,
Yeah.
because you're relying on external factors of like compliments or whatever to lead your life. And I think if I was honest with myself back then, I probably had a sense of that because I was also trying to like, okay, I want to be a coach now, right? So like I'm my own walking billboard. But like how much of it was I really trying to give value to people? This is the difference, like a transition over time. The value to people, like they can acquire versus posting things that I want to look the best, and like get likes on Instagram or whatever, right? That validation
When did you
spiral.
start coaching? And did you start coaching before you competed or did you compete and then start coaching?
I started training, got a coach because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I competed first because I competed and people saw me. And then what happened was people reached out,
Right.
can you help me? I'm like, yeah, for free, right? Because I was like, I'm not a coach.
Yeah.
I can tell you what I'm doing. Then what started happening is people got results, and then somebody offered to pay for my time, and I'm like, oof, dude, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want the risk here. And he's like, no, 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 it's your time. It's worth something. I'm like, okay, 50 was like $50 a month or $100 a month or something,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tight.
Yeah.
And then he ended up getting, he did a show and he got like top 3 in open. And I was like, oh shit, maybe we do know what we're doing, right?
I'm
And so
onto
that just like,
something here.
yeah, yeah. So like that just transpired, and word of mouth started happening, and that's kind of how my stuff got started.
I love
Was
those
just doing.
stories, man. I really like I love hearing about how people got started with it. I always just find that interesting. And I do find that like a lot of people kind of start in similar fashions where it's not really intentional. So like for myself similarly. So I was working for my family, and I was doing in-home sales where I would be going and doing demos in houses and stuff like that. And I would just go to the gym, local gym. And this was back in like 2014 or 2015. And I was competing. And so like I just, I looked in shape and just naturally would develop conversations with people in the gym. And I'm just, that type of person where if I see someone in the gym or whatever, I'll smile at them. So conversations kind of organically happen. And then people would kind of say, "Hey, can you help me? I'm looking to, build this, or I'm looking to lose this or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like I'd love to help." So I would just be like, having conversations, and then I'm like, let me just like be a little bit more hands-on. Let me help you. Let me do your diet. Let me do your training, stuff like that. So I remember I would, be in a house, doing in Indiana somewhere, doing, a demo. And then I'd be like, all right, I got to run out. I'm going to take some measurements and, go to the side of the house, and I'd be on my phone, and I'd be like, all right, eat this amount of carbs, this amount of proteins, this amount of fat, and I go back in, and then, and then before I knew it, one person turned into two people, turned into a couple people at my gym. And then, it just kind of spread from there within the gym. And then I was kind of like, wait a minute, like I'm doing this for free. Maybe, there might be something here. So I always kind of like get interested in how people, what sparks that, initial idea to actually make the move. Cause a lot of people just, they want to compete, or they just want to look good. I don't want to help anyone, I just want to, but some people, have that gene or whatever, where it's like, I feel like I could provide some value here. And then if it's kind of natural, because if you're real passionate about it, like we are, it's something that you love, and it's just this never ending fire that is just burning. You enjoy, I love, because I can relate to it too. Like, in order to get to like, to get from novice to expert, like you have to start at not like you have to. So we've all, it's like when someone sends progress pictures or something, nobody likes doing the first set of progress pictures. Nobody. That is a brutal experience. I remember every time I had to do a starting set of progress pictures for myself and send those off to a coach. And it's you're vulnerable. You don't ever go to a coach when you're at, well, I take that back. But oftentimes you go to a coach when you're at your lowest. I've hit a point. I need help. I can't do this by myself. Okay, I need someone to teach me, to guide me. Well, you're at a low point, so you have to set. And so I remember doing those. And so, I empathize when, people send, because, they're trusting you, and they're like, look, I'm not proud of this. Here's where we're at. Help me. And so I always get, very passionate, and I enjoy helping people, because I know, like, okay, I've been there. It's not a good feeling. And like we were talking about, this is one of those things where you could be working hard and not getting a return on that investment, time, money. I mean, that sucks.
Yep. It's just kind of like shifting priorities around. Something that it's kind of like what you learn in, I guess, investing. Sometimes it's like, what are you willing to lose and be okay with? Kind of like with bodybuilding. It's like, how much time are you willing to put into it?
It goes by quick too, man.
Yeah, dude, it does.
Yeah, time goes by quick. So all right, so okay, so that would be what are we gonna call that? What did we just learn? What are we gonna call that?
Was?
So that what was that mistake? What was the original mistake was, because we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, sorry.
Which is what this is what we're supposed to do.
I think why I think the mistake is labeling, or like identifying bodybuilding as not I was viewing bodybuilding, or I was using bodybuilding as a crutch. Let's say it
Okay.
like that, and it was not a positive. I think it was a positive
Yeah.
maybe in work ethic, but I
You
think
were
that
obsessed with
holistically,
it, but it was a negative thing.
in the grand scheme of things, if
Hmm.
I let's say that, for example, I stayed in that mindset, right,
Hmm.
and did that, hardcore. Do I think that anything that's evolved now would have happened? Probably not.
Right,
Probably not.
right.
So I think that it's more like the mistake is to have perspective, and that's why we're trying to say it
Yeah.
like this: is
You would have been
to
in
have.
real estate or something. You wouldn't be,
Who
coach.
knows if it'd be competing, man? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
right,
like
right.
that
You'd
level
be
of
doing something
stress and
completely
like,
different.
yeah. So I think that the mistake is just the views on bodybuilding itself of like how you misinterpreting how to incorporate into your life.
That's a
Let's put
good
it like
one,
that.
man. That's a good one for sure. All right. So my honorable mention is going to be bulking incorrectly
Okay.
slash eating every 2 hours. Like that was, I thought the key. So I was real big into like, man, reading Muscle and Fitness. Like when I would go to I would go to the vitamin shop like every week, right? And I would scope, God, this is going to date me. So I would just scope out the magazine sections, be like, all right, who's the biggest bodybuilder on here? There's like Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman, like all these like just freaks. And I would, you remember how like in Muscle and Fitness, they would have like their diets?
Yep.
They would tell what their diets were. And it would be like,
Big
eating
ones.
chicken, eating beef, eating rice every 2 hours, contest prep, get stage shredded. I'm like, oh man, I am so gonna do this. So well, I will tell you. So I said that I was on the road a lot for sales for my family company. Look, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Every 2 hours, I didn't care if I was in an appointment or not. I was going to my car because I had chicken, sweet potatoes, rice, oatmeal. I
All of it.
ate I ate only 5 foods for like years and no seasonings or nothing. So when I'm going to my car and eating these foods, they're in Tupperware, they're cold, the chicken is slimy. Like, cause it was like microwavable chicken a lot of times where it's like you get it in a bag at Target or Costco or whatever, and you just microwave it in the morning or whatever. So it was like cold, slimy chicken. A lot of times I knew that that meal was done when I would start to get like, if I couldn't get it down anymore, not because I was full, because I was literally going to vomit. That's when I
Yeah.
knew like, okay, that meal was done every 2 hours, like clockwork, chicken, so much chicken, just the body, just the bodybuilder
Bro.
foods, the bro foods. And the kicker here, the biggest kicker here is I got so fat. I got so fat, dude. I'm trying, keep in mind, I'm not trying to get fat. I'm trying to look like these bodybuilders on the magazine covers, big, shredded, vascular, just gnarly. I got so fat you couldn't see a muscle. You could not see anything. I'm training hard. I'm getting I'm nauseated because the amount of food that I'm eat because calories. What's a calorie? I
What's a
don't know.
calorie?
What's a calorie? I don't know. I'm not. You could have asked me how many calories. I was probably eating. God, I was probably eating 300 grams protein. I don't even know at like 100 and some pounds. Like I was eating so much protein. I was eating, like I remember I would wake up and I would do like 10 eggs, like 10 whole eggs. There's a good way to start your day with 10 whole eggs, man. Let me tell
Oh,
you, you're
Jesus.
getting ready to
Yeah.
go into the car.
Yeah.
And and then like giant bowl of just plain oatmeal, nothing on it. Like I would put some flax seeds in it for flavor. And I was miserable when it came to food. Like I really was miserable, but willing to do it. Like I had no problem doing it. Like I I would like we were talking about, I would eat dirt if I thought it would get me to my goal. Didn't matter. And I did it for a long time. I until I, linked up with Cliff and Katie, and that's when I remember when I was talking with Katie, she was teaching me about macros, like when I first started, because I started with Katie, and then because I always wanted to be a bodybuilder, dude. Like my goal was always to be a bodybuilder. Everything that I did, I always wanted it. And when I reached out to Katie, I wasn't there yet. And so or when I reached out to Team Wilson, and then when I got with Katie, she started teaching me about macros. I was like, what? Like,
What is
you mean
this?
I can, she would, I remember I asked her, like in the thing, I was like, because it was just like a different language to me. And I couldn't believe that what I knew to be
scary, probably. Like,
I
wait, I
could,
can do this? Yeah.
oh, it was so beautiful, dude. I remember because I would still like kind of gravitate towards those foods. And she was like, you could throw in, this is like back in the Pop-Tart macro days, you could throw in a Pop-Tart or toaster strudel or something like that. And then I was like, well, like really? And then yeah, and so I started learning about that, and it was a game changer. But I remember, man, like I stuck to those 5 foods religiously. I did not break. And what I had to show for it was I just got really, really fat. So it turns out you can get fat eating clean foods, just eating too many calories. And I'll never forget that, and never forget how that felt either, too, because I was just like, man, like I was very, very miserable during that time.
Yeah, that's what.
I got
No, I
pictures too
love that.
somewhere. I gotta find some pictures too, because I can always tell when I was on that bulk, that particular one, which lasted for a year or more. I got real heavy.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, I mean, I think so. I guess that's so you bring that up because that was going to be my second one. It was similar to what you just described with like mistakes. I don't know if it's like a mistake. You look back like, damn, what the hell was I doing, right? But you didn't have perspective, right? You're like, what's a calorie, like you said?
Right.
Because like yeah, with me, I think so. I did a muscle and fitness, and then I don't know. It was like one of the first gurus on social media, like marketing actual ads. And I think it was God. I remember Mike Chang. Remember that one? That
Oh,
guy.
six pack. Oh, I got burned by Mike Chang, dude. Don't
Oh,
get me
I
started
got
on
Mike
six
Chang
pack.
got me. That
What
was the
was
first
him? What was
pre-workout
his
I ever took.
program called? It was six pack
Was it six
something.
pack shortcuts?
Yes,
Something like that.
yes, yeah. Oh, Mike Chang
Mhm.
he burned me good, man. He said he got me the plan. It was him, the YouTube, him and his partner, and they were showing all these videos, and none of it worked. Like it, yeah. You're
Yeah.
not an OG unless you got burned by Mike Chan.
Yeah. No, for real, dude, that guy, he was like
Did
the
he get
first.
sued or something, or didn't
I
he
don't
lose the
know,
company?
probably something because yeah, he's not around. But like, dude, like marketing, like back then, like he just went ham. And I'm like, dude,
Oh
what is this?
yeah,
I didn't even know what an ad was, and all of a sudden it comes in your feed. Like, oh, sponsored? What's that? And then like this Asian dude, and yeah, I bought his pre-workout, and that was the first actual pre-workout I ever took, and I was like, oh shit, what is this? Like, yeah,
Jack 3D type
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. But yeah, back then I forgot who else I was. You're being exposed to, right? In the old school bodybuilding, and like for whatever reason, I don't think all the way through growing up, I ever had sweet potatoes. I maybe like it was weird. I'm like, why? What is a sweet potato? What's a
Yeah,
yam actually?
yeah.
And I don't know why when I was growing up we didn't have anything like that. Maybe at like Thanksgiving there would be like some form of sweet potato pot. Like, I don't know, something similar. But never had like actual just sweet potatoes. So these jack dudes, right, are like having all like telling you to eat these sweet potatoes. So I remember, I'm like, okay, how do you cook this, right? Like you get at the store, and I'm like starting to cut it up, and I'm like, this doesn't seem like I'm like I try to take a bite out of a raw sweet potato, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible, right? And so I'm like asking, like, no, you have to bake it. I'm like, okay, so then you bake it. Well, I didn't bake it long enough, so you like
No.
take out oven. It's still hard, hard in the middle at least. And you're like, oh, and so I did that for a while, dude. Like that's
Yeah,
how, and I didn't
yeah,
understand you had to cook it longer. So then I'd be like, okay, we got to build muscle. Like we got to eat more sweet potatoes, like as many as I can eat. So the goal was to like force feed myself every meal, like have some chicken breast, and then the
Yeah.
rest is just sweet potato. And I did that for a while, and then I just started to get fat too.
Dude, there's so
And so
many
yeah,
carbs. Sweet potato. Where well, it's like why you wonder why these certain foods like, and they're universal too. Like we like sweet potato, like it's got to be sweet potato. And I remember, yeah, I would just poke a bunch of holes in them to let the air out, and I would wrap them in a paper towel, get them a little wet, and I put them in the microwave. And what's funny is like if I eat a sweet potato now, dude, they're especially during prep, dude. Oh, they taste so good. Like you're like, I don't deserve
it's a
this. Like
treat. Yeah, right.
this is candy, right? Because sweet potato. But I remember I couldn't even. I ate so many of them that I couldn't even like smell it without going like having that like.
Especially when your Tupperware is hitting all day and you open up, you're just like, oh, yeah, it's
dude,
slimy.
it was all cold and gushy like too, and like. And I wouldn't put anything on them. So like they were just plain sweet potatoes, and I wasn't salting them or anything. I thought salt was bad back then.
Right.
Like I was buying low
Salt.
sodium food.
I'm not trying to have a heart attack
like,
here.
Yeah, I was like buying like low sodium like condiments and shit. So it's funny. They would make a joke at my family office. They'd be like, here comes Mikey with his chicken and sweet potatoes. And whenever I would go in there to this day, they're like, you still eat sweet potatoes? I'm like, no, I actually, the only time I really do eat sweet potatoes is like, peak week or something like that, but I really don't even eat sweet potatoes. Meanwhile, like sweet potato pie, like for Thanksgiving, like all that stuff, when you dope it up, you put marshmallows in it, put all that
good.
stuff is now that that would have been good. I think that would have been the way to do it if you just kind of like, cook it. Like, I don't know about you, but I am so, when it comes, I don't cook, dude. I whip shit up. Like, I don't like to cook for me. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it's like
time-wise,
it's time-wise. Like, I think being a good bodybuilder, efficient, like doing things quick, like paper plates, like to me, like are just like
best invention ever.
So good, dude. Like it's just cook it, clean as you go. Like I'm a big cook, clean as I go. Like my pan, I could cook and clean at the same time. So I have everything down by the time I'm eating. I've already cleaned my pans, all that stuff. Like I don't like to clean afterwards, let all the stuff take all over the pan and stuff like that. I'm clean as I go and then eat. So by the time I eat, I'm just throwing that plate away and there's nothing to do. Everything's already been done. Like I think like there's something about bodybuilders that it's like, all right, do this in the most efficient way possible. So it's like you could just move on. And I spend a lot more time certainly thinking about food, but like making sure things taste right in prep than I do in the off season. Like in the off season, it's more like, let's, not that I don't enjoy it, but prep, I have, having, this many seasons under my belt at this point, like there are certain, like, I know when certain things get flipped on and off, I'm like, oh, I'm at this stage. Oh, okay. One thing I noticed that I do during prep is I push all of my food to one side of the plate and I kind of eat it slowly. And it's like, I kind of like, it's like organize my plate, which it was totally unconscious. And I didn't even notice it until like, when I said, I was doing it during a prep and I was like, wait a minute. I was doing this like during like another prep. I was like, whoa, I do that during prep. I don't do that in the off season, that's like
in off season.
Yeah. Like it's just not a big, it's just, you almost fetishize I can't say that word right now. You know what I'm saying? Fetishize food when you're in prep. Food is like, it's kind of like, you ever notice when you're backstage and you have all of these attractive people, women, men, everyone in their peak state. And you know what? They're in like next to nothing. Nobody's thinking about oh man, they look hot or anything. Everyone's
Yeah, I
like,
know.
man, that
I'm
cupcake
hungry.
looks so good right now. I can't wait to get my hands on that cupcake. Like all you're thinking about is food. Like it's such a like your mind really does some strange things during prep, which I do have some things on. So all right, so so that was my honorable mention. We're just gonna call that's not even dirty bulk. That's just bulking improperly. Eating only clean foods, and yeah, I think we've all been there. So
Yeah, just having perspective like how to actually do it, and making the misconception that you have to have sweet potatoes and rice and all that to bulk properly.
my God, man. Yeah, that's too funny. And it's funny that like you did the same thing, like with the same foods, right? Like
Yeah.
like
Oh
sweet
yeah, that's what it
potatoes. Like it's
was.
that particular
I
food
don't know
that
why.
means
Yeah,
I'm gonna get big.
I just ate it undercooked. I didn't for so long, and I was like, God, this is so terrible, but I'm gonna do it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I just didn't realize I could cook it longer for one. So I started doing actually was I'm like, can you put anything with this? And I don't remember who told me, like, oh yeah, just put some like, I don't know, brown sugar cinnamon, on it. I'm like,
Game changer.
okay. Well, the thing was they're still undercooked. So I'm dousing it with brown sugar cinnamon. So then think about the caloric value, right? Like if you think about now.
Yeah.
So you're like, it's shitty food and put it down. It's like got some sugary taste. So it's like, okay, but then how much volume or how much the caloric density just like increased even more. So now I'm really getting
Yeah,
fat,
right. You're eating the sweet potato like it's a carrot. Like
Pretty much. Pretty much,
that's
yeah.
hilarious.
Oh, it was so bad. My stomach hurt so bad all the time. But
All right, what's your number two? And I think we're probably gonna like some of ours are gonna align a little bit too, because like I've
that's what I
already
was
seen
saying.
some
Yeah. The
like
one
that's
I
kind
think
of
that
like the same one.
yeah, I'll just use that as my second because that's what I was going to go into anyways. Because it was that, and then just to piggyback on that was just like essentially the perspective of like nutrition, right? Like towards the goal is kind of like what we're talking about right now. Because like even in bulking and dieting, I remember the bro foods, the chicken first prep meal
Yeah.
plan, chicken, eggs, oatmeal, rice, sweet potato. I remember it was like I was like I didn't know. Yeah, what is a calorie? Like you said, it's so funny. And I remember I had cucumbers. You know, cucumbers, natural diuretic, and asparagus, right? All that shit. So cucumbers. I remember on my plan I don't remember. It was like per meal. It was like 50 grams of cucumber, something like that, right? Well, I made it to my last meal, and I need 50 grams, and I had this half cucumber left, and I think it was like 35 grams, right? And so I'm missing 15 grams of cucumber, right? And I'm freaking. I'm like, oh shit! I got to go to the. I went to the store, to get
Holy
more cucumbers.
yes.
And so I remember that because I was like, he told me I need to stick to it to the T, otherwise it won't work. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to do shitty on stage because I'm gonna have
Yeah.
my 15 grams of cucumber in that one, And so I remember so I did. I went and then I remember after the whole show and everything, and we're having I don't know this team dinner. Everybody's just going ham on this buffet line, right? And I'm like
Yeah.
scared. I'm like, we can do this. Is this okay? Yeah. Just treat yourself. I'm like, okay. And then I told him the story. I told him about it, and then I looked back after about macros, and he's just laughing. He's like, Jesus. He's like,
You took
dude.
that to the next level.
Yeah. He's like, damn, dude, you're kind of psycho. Like, I didn't think you would. Most people wouldn't really do that, because they're like, wow, it's
I
15
do
grams.
think that there's some like it is silly when we think about it and you look back on it and you're like, man, 50 grams but you have to like also take that mindset across the whole process. I do think that there is something to be said for I'm going to do everything that I can.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, when it comes to competing, like whenever I backstage, like my goal is to always know like, okay, whatever happens on show day, I can go have a good time and know that I did every single thing in my power during prep and during the off season that I could have done. So there's nothing else to be done now. And I don't have to stress it and I can just go enjoy because all of the work has been done. So I do think that there's something to be said for like, cause if you're stressing and freaking out over 15 grams of cucumber, that means
That's like a slice.
that's like,
yeah.
yeah, that's like less than a slice. Like, because a pickle, I think, is like 28 grams.
Yeah.
Like, right? Isn't a pickle, like, if you weigh a pickle, it's like 28 grams. So,
Yeah.
like, a friggin' cucumber, like, that's like a little slice. But, like, if you're that meticulous, that means you really, you have, like, because you ever have someone, they'll, they'll say something to you, like, yeah, they'll, like, make a comment or something like, yeah, but I estimated this or whatever. And it's like show week or whatever, and you're like, well, how often are you doing that? And like, how, that's like and it's something like significant too. Like they may offshoot, but yeah, I just, it was like 100 grams of carbs over or something like that. And you're like, what? Like, okay. So like if that's not a big deal, like how often, how frequently is that happening and in what particular areas? So if you're like, honed in on this slice of pickle,
Yeah.
you're really, you're really doing, what needs to get done. You're really going over
Yeah.
everything with fine. And there is a time where like that nitty gritty stuff, I do think adds up over time. I remember there was one time during prep, I didn't put this in my mistakes or anything, but I think this was during this was my second season. So my first season like went smoothly. Like I'm just going through the process for the first time. Always wanted to look like a bodybuilder. And I'm by the time I see my bottom ab, that's the first time I've seen my bottom ab. So I'm just happy to be here, man. Like this is awesome. I'm just having a blast. Go show day, having a blast, whatever. Then season 2, which I did my second season right back to back, which I don't ever recommend doing. I don't ever recommend competing and then competing the 8 months later or whatever.
Yeah.
It just, there wasn't a lot of turnaround time. So the next time I put a lot of pressure on myself, I had all these like unrealistic expectations. I got this to prove and that to prove, things were going on in here. And so it became not fun and it became obsessive. And I remember like when I was doing my post-workout cardio and prep, if I did a minute of cardio that I didn't think was like hard enough or good enough, I added a minute on. So that's where my mindset was like, I got to do everything perfectly, and by the time this prep, my second prep is where I made the most amount of mistakes. And I'm going to talk about them here. So like isolating. So to piggyback on your first one, isolating during prep, that was during my second prep. I was just shutting myself off to the world. If you wanted to come into my world, you could come into my world, but I wasn't like going out. I wasn't, I wasn't doing things. I was just, all I was focusing on was competing in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And it was probably the hardest prep because also when you're out, like you're less thinking about hunger. Like how hard is it when you're like, okay, that feeling in prep because you're just counting down them. At a certain point, you're just like, when is my next meal? I'm dying right now. Like the hunger, like, do you get hit with the hunger or the fatigue more or both, like during prep? Like what's worse for you?
Earlier, it was hunger. And then over time, I feel like you can, well, at least in my experience, I had more mental like acceptance of that. And it kind of, hunger is not a big deal to me anymore. It's kind of like, it just is what it is. And then the fatigue, usually now, actually, it's not even like physical fatigue is just there, but then there's acceptance. I think for me now in my career, it's more about I really have to be mindful with my mental stamina, with running clients and like stuff I'm doing, like relationships, like communicating, because I'm kind of, for me, I get really like quiet because mentally I'm just like tired.
So it's more
But
more mentally tired than physically tired.
yeah, I'd say that like no, you're just always you're definitely physical.
Okay.
I'll say to answer your question, like physically, definitely more fatigued for me at least now than the hunger. The hunger is there, but it's like it's more acceptance, so I don't really feel it as much anymore. And I think that once you get like to the point with bodybuilding and you have enough muscle and you get like shredded glutes, there's like a pretty high level of like your deficit, pretty hardcore for a while, like to get all the way there. But then once you like get there, then you have like the mental perspective, like the anxiety of like, how long is it going to take? What is it going to take? Like, you don't know until you got there, right? But once you get there, then it's like, okay, now what to expect. And then you're just like accepting it. And then the hunger is just like part of the game. And then I think that, like, the physical kind of hits a little bit more for me at least. But the bigger thing is like managing my mental stamina as time goes on to like do all my obligations and like be a good partner, or a friend or whatever it is, family member. Those are like my bigger, like my priority is to make sure that I'm delegating mentally properly. So that's the bigger struggle for me.
Yeah. 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 It's, and we could talk about it, but unless you experience it, because I understand everything that you're saying. I mean, there comes a point in prep where, carrying your groceries in from the groceries, like you go to the grocery store and you're in your car and you drive back to your house and you have, you bring in your groceries. Well, that task is monumentous. Like just the
Yeah.
thought of like, I have to sometimes almost, there were times where I remember I would park the vehicle and I'd be like, all right, I'm existing and it's exhausting. Just being here, you could feel your body and it's, and the only thing that would make you feel better is the one thing you can't do, which is eat and put body fat on. So unless you like experience those sensations and the things that your mind like tells you, because your mind could start to tell you things, and it's like you're disregarding, your
Yeah.
human instincts to
I was gonna
just
say
survive.
natural. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. You're getting all those signals and you're just like,
Nope.
you just can't even acknowledge them, or you acknowledge them and you just know what they are, but, I think I find that like some people will struggle with the hunger more and some people will struggle with the fatigue more. Um, I tend to be the fatigue. Like you said, I think you get with overtime, you just get better at when you go into prep, this is the deal. And
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
hungrier you are, you're like, okay, this is where
We're
you're
getting
going to
there.
be able to
Mm-hmm.
see this, and you can see, like, you could totally see who suffered and who,
Mm-hmm.
pulled back in those times. Cause like, those are the times that matter the most, where your competition could be like, all right, well, maybe I'll have an extra 100 calories because I just can't even function, so it's,
Yeah. I think like when we're talking about hunger and then the physical stuff, I think that as well as like we talk, we're kind of really on the same level of like being more structured, especially with our food in general, like efficiency and all that. And I find with like is clients and stuff, the more this even stems from like career professions, but the more outgoing somebody is, or like they have a larger social life, or like I guess more importance on their social life, they're going out to restaurants and whatever they're doing. There's more like flexibility. I find that sometimes it's harder, especially if they're really into recipes and home cooked, like different varieties
yeah,
of foods, like a larger
yeah,
variety, which
yeah,
is totally cool, right? But sometimes those people might experience some more hunger just because they have more of a tie with food. Like food means more to them, I guess, if that
sure.
makes sense. So,
Yeah. You don't really realize too how much of life really revolves around food. I mean, that's what
oh,
we do. That's how we bond, right? So
yeah.
like events, barbecue, and a lot of us are competing during, the summer or the fall or whatever. So you start to know summer barbecues, 4th of July,
Mm-hmm.
get-togethers. I mean, there's so much stuff going on actually at pretty much any given time of the year, right? Like
Yeah.
holidays,
There's always
whatever.
something going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't really realize how much of life revolves around food. And unless I don't know about you, so at this point, people, it's just that's Mikey. Like no one really, I don't have to deal with the pressures of. I've been doing this for so long that I don't have to deal with the pressures of like, come on, just live a little. Like you could have, like
Yeah.
I just don't deal with that.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of younger competitors or people
Yeah.
who aren't typically in that world deal with a lot of exterior pressure.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
that can be a big deal. Like, for, many, many different reasons, especially if they're in that like susceptible spot where it's like, okay, that will make a difference with the way that you look. And especially if over time, but
Mhm.
a lot of people struggle with that area where it's like, I guess, peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's the
Yep.
same. And I do find that it's the very same kind of outlook on, have you ever gone to a bar? Because do you drink?
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. I'll have alcohol.
okay. So I don't drink and I haven't drank for a long time, not for any other reason that I don't like it.
Mm.
But when you go to a bar and let's say you're not, let's say you're in prep, or let's say for whatever reason you're not drinking,
Yeah.
um, people who drink will kind of like, hey, like will you have a drink with me? Oh, no, no. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, okay. So like, what, are you too good to have a drink? So,
Yeah.
I do feel like a lot of that comes from people who feel a certain way, because if you're doing something different than they kind of feel, even if it's unconscious, they'll feel judged because
Hmm.
you're not doing what they're doing. So they'll feel judged by you not joining in when really you're just doing your own thing,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with them. So a lot of times when
Yeah.
people are pressuring other people to eat what they're eating, it's because unconsciously they kind of feel like, well, why are you judging me for doing this when it couldn't be further from the truth. We're just bodybuilders. We're just, what we put in
Yeah.
our body, everything, especially up into a certain
Yeah.
point, makes
Yeah.
makes a difference. So we're just
Yeah.
completely focused on that mission, whereas it's very foreign to some of the general population.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that when you go against the grain of like social norms, especially in your culture, your hemisphere, wherever you're located at, and you're kind of different than social norms, um, it's viewed like sometimes people view it as like, it's a problem, right? Or like maybe they see themselves as a problem introducing it to you, or like you're not good enough, like you said. But the peer pressure just makes it. It's a lot of people's problem is the peer pressure of just like feeling like they're this could be just fitting in, but honestly, the other end of it, you look at you've worked with a lot of middle aged women and stuff like that. It's the peer pressure of just like not deserving to take care of myself, right? Like I should be participating in this or taking care of somebody else, or what's the point of life? Like, this is just one time or one this or one that. And, I'd rather enjoy this. And there's just like this peer pressure that isn't aligning with the overall goal, or like the thing that's really going to create happiness. And that's a whole different rabbit hole. But I agree. Like peer pressure is definitely a thing. And I think that sometimes, to some of it, a lot of people might not be happy with themselves. So then they're not okay with just being them, right? That's just being yourself, and they're like going back to the identity and labels and stuff like that. You're not there with your own. You're identifying, you're labeling yourself of who you want to be. If you have like external things doing that, and that peer pressure thing will always keep seeping in, and it always will keep influencing your ability to make decisions, right? So
Yeah, and you're usually, unless like you're hanging with a bunch of bodybuilders, um, you're usually more times than not. And if you're listening to this, you're usually, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, probably going to be one of, if not the only person who's following any form of like food regimen, or
mhm,
usually you're the outlier, like,
yeah,
which is kind of odd, but it's just kind of the way it works. Like usually you're the one who is monitoring their nutrition, at
yeah,
least to some form of like a higher level, training with intent, and the kind of intensity that we do. So usually like you'll be the outcast, so to speak, in the group, which I've always kind of liked. I've
yeah.
always kind of like
Me
taken
too.
pride in that, even from
Yeah,
a, like, I liked doing different. I mean, not actually, now things are starting to get a little bit more mainstream, but I've always kind of liked doing things a little bit differently and kind of being like, well, yeah, it's kind of my thing. I've always kind of got
yeah,
proud of that. So whenever
yeah,
someone kind of, expresses concern that they're having, peer pressure in their inner circle, I always kind of like, recommend like using it as a, rather than like a bad thing or something. Cause a lot of times they'll just like, I just want to keep it to myself. I don't want to let anyone know, which I definitely understand, but that means they're just trying not to draw attention to it. But if the attention organically comes your way, it's kind of like, yeah, be proud of it. Don't be, and if you are proud of it, that's when people kind of like, oh, okay, that's cool. If they can kind of see the little cracks, that's when they're like, oh, like, you could do this. Come on. Like, this isn't going to hurt you. You could, come on, you have a blah, 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 or have a this with me or that with me, and which is totally fine if that's what you're doing. But if you're on, contest prep or something like that, you're going to have to disregard all those, things and be able to, handle your own food and body, when it comes to your body. So, being, when they can see that you're susceptible, they'll push a little bit harder, whereas they're like, oh, okay, if they know that no matter what, you're going to be doing your own thing, they don't really push it too much.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I always try to like make more drastic examples to make comparison, like to shed light, I guess. And it's just like, I don't know, in the simplest form, it's like, okay, somebody tells you you should jump off a bridge, right? And there's two ways, like exactly how you're going to reflect the situation is what their next move is going to be. So they're like, yeah, bro, jump off that bridge. And you're like, I don't know if I should, they're going to be like, oh, come on, bro. Don't be a wimp. You could do it. Like, you're going to be okay.
You can say pussy on this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's like that where they start peer pressuring on this thing it could be very dangerous, right? Or what, I don't know the scenario, but instead you're just, you say, why would I jump off a bridge and like potentially snap my neck? That's the stupidest thing, like I'm not going to do that. And they're like, they'll probably back off, right? Or whatever, or they'll come at you. But the point here is like how you're coming to the conversation of how you like display your own emotions and your thoughts can definitely, like, the influence on you can be like flip back on them. And honestly, most times you think about bullies, I mean, this is the simplest form, right? Peer pressure. Like you flip it back on them, it goes back to their own insecurities or whatever it is. And then it shuts them up, because then usually everybody in the group, if you're in a group, think that they're the ones that have the problem now.
Because like, why does anybody care what anybody else, like, I've never spent a second thinking about like, what are you eating? Like, why is it such a big deal? Like, if you're like, it is such a big deal.
We make fun of this guy because of what he's eating. Like, I've never thought once in my life, like, let me get my kicks off to like make fun of this dude that's eating, even in Tupperware, whatever, right? It's
right.
That's your thing. That's your thing. I don't care. It's not affecting me. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't affect them. So, but yeah, that prep, man, I did a lot of things wrong in that prep. That was the worst prep of my life. That was the hardest prep of my life. I did, and also, what I was doing on there to kind of, this is like combination. I was watching the Food Network.
Food Network?
Dude, I don't watch the Food Network. That's not in my repertoire. That's never been my thing. I've never been that way. I've never Instagram reels. Thank God they weren't having those back then. But like, cause you just seeing these people coming up with all these creative desserts. And like, for me, like, that's the main thing, is like desserts and stuff like that. I've always just, off season or not, like, I just love dessert. That's like my thing. So I was watching the Food Network and just, I mean, every possible thing you could do wrong, I was doing wrong. Like, isolating myself, doing all of that extra, like, I'm gonna, make up my cardio. Food Network, like, just watching it like all the time, abusing artificial sweeteners, man. Like Walden's Farm syrup, eating foods that were just not micronutrient dense. Have you ever heard of Arctic Zero ice cream?
No, actually, I haven't tried that.
Yeah, you don't want no part of that. It's just this artificial low calorie ice cream, not Halo Top. It's a level down from Halo Top. It's like, if you taste it in the off season, you're like, yeah, you need help. Like it's flavored ice almost, like glorified, but
Mhm.
it's like when you're in prep and you're like things just taste so different. They're just it's almost like you're given like a weird superpower, kind of like your taste buds are just like
Yeah, right.
I mean, the irony is you can't taste anything, but like you can't and utilize them, but you're given this like super, like even you notice like during prep, your smell, even like your sense of smell
Heightened.
increases by like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's like, what's that movie with Bradley Cooper? Limitless? It's like you're given limitless, like all your senses
Your
are
senses.
enhanced, right? And I used to just load art like Walden's Farms. Have you ever used those Walden's Farms
Mm.
product? Yeah, dude, not good, not good, not good. And like the syrup, I would heat the syrup in the microwave and put that on the ice cream, like not syrup, but like the chocolate syrup. And then
Yep.
I would just make these like little concoctions, that just would, and I just thought they were so good, but you're getting very little nutrition with those meals. And
Yeah.
so that definitely impacts the way you look from start to finish. If you just go too much of that, chasing taste instead of like what's good for my physique. And then just watching the Food Network. And I remember Taco Bell came out with what did they come out with? What it's like not the Cinesticks, but like those little those little cinnamon balls with like the
Kaylee
frosting
would
in them.
know. I
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah. Yeah. So I remember I would just be like looking at the menu, like just scoping out the menu, not eating it, but just looking at it. When you're scoping out, when you're by
hmm
yourself and you're Friday night and you're just home scoping out the Taco Bell menu for the new cinnamon balls with the frosting in
Something's
them,
wrong.
something is not going right upstairs. That's
Yeah.
not that's not normal behavior. So I that was one of the things I was like, okay, future preps, I'm not like I was like watching like food reviews and stuff like that. So those were just things that I did during that prep that I mean I somehow we pulled it off, came away with some wins, but I left that prep with some battle wounds, some scars and some memories, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna do those again because
Mhm.
those things made prep so, I mean, that goes back to that obsession. That just makes prep so much harder than it had. I mean, it's the hardest thing you have to do. Like, why make it harder on yourself by just,
Yeah.
adding in those obstacles? It's like, you know, being so thirsty and just watching water drip. Like, right? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, I don't to be honest, like I don't know. I've used stuff like that. I don't know because I'm not like a flavor. I don't know if it's because I'm not like a flavor or like the taste of the food as much as just like the volume. Like
Mm.
my thing was is like I deeper in prep. I got this big bowl, call it my prep bowl,
Yeah.
and so it'd just be like
But prep
so.
bowl.
And I used to go to like this produce market thing or whatever, and they would have like this deal, and you get all like I don't know how many pounds of produce, and so I'd have these bowls in every meal. Like I'm deeper into prep. It's like the lettuce, and then like you think about you start researching. My research was the most the least amount of calorically dense foods, the vegetables, right? And
Right.
so you learn though how much really fiber you should really put
Dude, you're
in
just
before you're just
abusing
like
your digestives. just
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 abusing it.
overdoing it with like there is a line where you're just having so much fiber and your stomach is
Yeah,
just
it's not
so
good.
filled up with vegetables. You're just abusing your
hmm
digestive system.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's exactly it. Because yeah, just the well, it was like the yellow summer squash, zucchini. Those are you can cut them up, make the volume even bigger, and then
Yeah.
the lettuce and the different greens like that, spinach, and then yeah, I would have like 3 or 4 ounces of chicken, diced up, try to spread out one whole egg because I didn't want to use any oil because that's not Philly, right? Or
Yo,
whatever.
oil.
Oil. No, we're not using
Yeah, we
oil.
don't even, I don't even use, I don't even justify oil in the off season. I can't even just
Yeah.
come to terms with a 14 grams of fat for just this.
Yeah. No, that's so that was kind of more my thing with the volume of food rather than the taste, I guess. Because
Yeah.
seasons or
satiety.
whatever. Yeah, satiety that way.
Yeah.
But
So the name of the game is just to try to satiate as much as possible, which is it's so weird because like are you can you eat a lot in the off season? Like can you like because there is no limit to the amount of food that you could take down during prep. Like
yeah, that's
you
for
just
sure.
do not get full. So like just
No.
trying to fill your stomach up with just like you said, like your prep bowl, your prep, you know, you got your I know when the rice cakes come out and the Greek yogurt, which I'm still like I'm still coming up from prep and I'm just now so like within the past like 2 weeks able to sleep for a full night because sleep for me takes a huge hit. Like that's like sleep's one of the first things to go.
Mhm.
And so I'm finally starting to be able to sleep for a full night all the way through the entire night without waking up, which is just amazing. And you forget these things like when you're
Yeah.
in, like you forget like what life is like out of prep. And then uh rice cakes and Greek yogurt and putting protein in the Greek yogurt and kind of making
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
a concoction and volume. So I know when those rice cakes start when I start busting out the rice cakes, that's when I'm starting to get into it. So
Hmm.
I haven't given up the rice cakes just yet. Not ready to give them up yet. I'm
Yeah.
still liking them, you know. But I know eventually when my hormones are back, all you know, everything's homeostasis level. That I probably won't see another rice cake until next prep.
Yeah. No, okay. So I definitely gotta. So if this person watches this, so Kaylee knows this story or this. Okay, we're talking about weird stuff, right? And with hunger and like how we look at food and during prep. So what you're talking about is like during prep, you kind of abuse things artificially, Food Network, all that, right? And so like during prep, I think maybe so too. It's like satiety with the volume I'm trying to get, but I think that I have heard stories like that. So I'm like, do not look at this stuff, right? And so I'm like, stay away. But then you hit your show, and then afterwards, I have a lot of adherence of like stick what you need to do. But all of the artificial stuff and all that, you know, screw it. I don't care. I'm going to do that. I don't care about my digestive system right now
Yeah,
because
right.
I'm not doing it. So I remember like, I don't know why, dude, but for a while there, I would have the sugar-free chocolate syrups and caramels and all this stuff. And I, but I try to make it feasible in like oatmeal, maybe to like, make it reasonable, right? But
Yeah.
no, no, no. I mean, I'm talking on all the different vegetables. It was vegetables, and then it was chicken breast, and then it was like, how can I make this sweet and salty? And it was just the weirdest shit. And then as my calories went up, you're still lean. So you're eating more food, but your hunger signal is still high. That's why you can put down a shit ton of food, right? So I remember at a point where I'm having to get in a lot of carbs. I'm pushing up high, even though I'm still lean. And so I started eating cereal, right? But my hunger signaling is still high, so I can eat a lot
Mhm.
of cereal. But because I'm still really hungry, I'm like, you could put, some milk or maybe even make some protein powder and almond milk and put it over your cereal, right? No, 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 no. I wanted more volume. So I'm having straight chicken breast on cereal with sugar-free syrup,
Bruh.
and sugar-free chocolate syrup, and all this crazy stuff on cereal. And at the time, I think Kaylee and I were, and the people, I was at somewhere, or I don't remember what this was, but Kaylee's friend, she said, "What the hell are you eating?" I'm like, I would probably just not ask.
Don't mind me.
Yeah, don't mind me. She's like, how can you look like this and then you're eating this? Like, I don't know if I want to look like that because you're eating some weird shit, dude.
Dude,
I'm like,
chicken on see
on
that
cereal.
is the type of stuff I like to hear, dude. Like that
I
is
would
the
peel it
stuff that
up.
nobody knows. Like that's the stuff where you're in a dark corner of a room somewhere eating like that like cuz I mean I've never done that. Like I've never done chicken but I've done some weird combos like you even said like the protein powder, shake the protein powder up
Mm-hmm.
and put that into the cereal. I, I mean that's
Mm-hmm.
my I love that. Um but putting chicken in I guarantee that you were as happy as if you were eating
Oh my
like
God, dude.
like I
Dude, and
guarantee.
then finally got fast to come up, right? My macros. I'm like, put some peanut butter on this. So then it was cereal,
Dude,
chicken, and then peanut butter with sugar-free syrup, like on pancakes, right?
dude.
And then I'm eating this happy as could be. And it's just people looking at you like, what? Something wrong with you. I'm like, there is, but I'm happy. I don't care, you know. And then
There
over
is a
time,
point to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, as your body fat comes back up, and then now I don't remember last time I had cereal, you know, because I'm like, yeah, it doesn't sound appealing anymore. Having just whatever, but especially not chicken
dude,
on cereal. But
dude. Yeah, and there's a point too, like during like that transition when you're transitioning in the off season, you're just not ready to give up those caloric those calorie friendly foods. You know, you're still that, you know, people, unless you experience it, you just don't, you cannot get full. No matter how much your food could, you could bump your food up to 500 grams carbs, you know, 100 grams fat. You're still just not going to get that feeling of like, I'm satisfied. So it's like the full, you know, the fuller you can feel, the better. So like you're still eating like 400 grams carbs from like just
weird
these like
shit,
low
yeah.
calorie foods, you know, so you're just like slamming it. But man, that chicken and cereal, that's one for the books, man. That's a
Oh,
combo I've not heard before. But like I said, I know that you were just like ear to ear, grin
yeah.
on your face, like, man, this is the best thing I've ever had. Like,
It's
oh,
so funny. I
I got
had
one
that at
for you
least
after
3 to 4 times per day. I had that meal: cereal, chicken,
that.
peanut
Dude, I
butter,
love it.
and something. Yeah.
It's
Anyway, go
probably
ahead.
not that bad. Like, think about it. So, like, chicken and waffles, like with syrup on it. Like, have you ever had chicken and waffle? I've never had it, but it looks fire.
Yeah, that's a good way to see. We're justifying things. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. This is bodybuilding. No, when I post, so like a lot of times, like I'll do like a little Instagram story on like apparently I have some weird like food habits that, you know, I'm finding out. So one that, so this is to gonna pair perfectly with your cereal one because it involves cereal. So a lot of times when I get to the end of my day, right? Let's say I have like 10 or 12 or shit, maybe 20, 30 grams of protein I need to get in, but I've reached my carbs and fats. Liquid pasteurized egg whites will get you there. Like it's one of the
Mm,
only foods that is high quality amino and it's no, there's nothing in it but protein. Dude, I'm not gonna just waste my time cooking that shit, dude. I just slam that. It's at this point, it's whatever. Like I'm not gonna waste my time. Like for me to cook, you know, maybe if I'm in deep in prep and I'm like, I need that food and I can't justify it. But
mm,
if I'm in the off season or anywhere near it, yeah, I'm drinking that. And I've drank
yeah,
a lot of egg whites. It's safe to drink. You could, it's not
yeah.
like I'm cracking the egg, you know. This is
Mm,
like liquid pasteurized egg whites. So you could drink these. And they actually make like even smoothies a little bit thicker.
mm-hmm.
You know, like cereal. So what I was doing, this was during that same prep in 2015. I was using egg whites as my base for cereal. So I was no protein powder, just the egg whites. And I was mixing that in with the cereal and eating it happy as could be. Dude, that does not taste good. Like that is not something that tastes good. Like if you're putting like upwards of 20 to 30 grams of protein of egg whites in a bowl and then dumping cereal in that and eating it like cereal, something. And I was used to it. It was like my morning, like every morning. And I was like, God, this does not get any better. It does not
Yeah.
get any better than this moment. Like, I don't care. This is the best thing I could have right now. I am so happy. It is not good. Like
No.
I mean, if you put like protein powder in it, like that's something I
Mm,
do is like you know, shake up a protein shake, dump that in the cereal. If you don't
yeah,
like, I don't actually, I can't
I
remember the
like
last time
that.
I've had milk in my fridge. I just have never been a
I
fan of
don't
milk.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just that protein shake, like a chocolate flavor or brownie
Mm,
flavor, shake that up, put that in, as the base of your cereal. I don't care what cereal it is. Well, I don't really mess with like Fruit Loops or like
yeah.
the fruitier stuff, but like Cinnamon
Yeah.
Toast Crunch, eh, you know, what cereal is like is there a bad cereal? Like it's like
No.
even
Sugar,
the
man.
worst cereals. What'd you say?
It's just sugar, man. Just different
It's
form
just
of
sugar. It's
different
just
varieties
sugar.
of
And
sugar.
like also like why is the serving size of cereal 3/4 of a cup? Like who does like if you're going into cereal, 3/4 of a cup, like I need 2 cups or I'm not, I'd rather none
Yeah.
or at least 2 cups. Like other words, like why are we going to play this game? Like because
Hmm.
3/4 is
Yeah.
not going to do it. All right, so we could pretty much keep going. I think that we both have a multiple mistakes that we could keep going over, but I think if we keep going, there's gonna be like a 3 hour freaking
Yeah.
podcast. So let's wrap it up here, and I want to real quickly let the people know where they can find you, website, Instagram, and I'll link everything below, but let them know where to find you.
Yeah, so for me directly, I mean, usually social channels like Facebook and Instagram, but Instagram, just be at Austin Paulsen Fitness. But I think on a bigger level with us talking, I think we should definitely link up Unrivaled. So, www.unrivaledcoaches.com. Coaching, have to look at the URL
I'll
actually.
put
Yeah.
the link in there where they could find
Yeah.
everything Unrivaled. So Unrivaled
Perfect.
coaching, apply for
Mhm.
coaching. I'll link your Instagram so they can see you, and also Austin does promote content pretty much
Mhm.
daily. So
Yeah.
fitness, bodybuilding,
Yeah.
everything related around contest prep. We're both very similar in that we coach contest prep, we coach lifestyle, and we're both
Mhm.
bodybuilders. So
Yeah.
hopefully people found value in a lot of our blunders, because like I said, we could, I got multiple, we didn't really get into like the training side of things. We talked a lot about nutrition and mindset. We didn't really talk too much about like the actual training, because I know there's some,
Mhm.
different training mistakes we've made too. So we might have to have a
Yeah.
part 2 of this
Yeah.
sometime as well. But I know you got to get going. So Austin, dude, it was great having you. I'm glad we got to do the first episode together. Between
Yeah.
the, what we talked about before recording, that could have been a podcast in and of itself. So we'll definitely do this again soon.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely should. So yeah, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm really excited to see this come out, and I can't believe this is episode 1. But I think you're going to do some really cool stuff, and you connect with more coaches. I think it'll be pretty cool to see just different perspectives in the industry in total. So thank you for having me on, man.
Absolutely. All right, man. We'll talk real soon.